crews, starting with number 10, the Golden Lion Pirates. Alright, and we will be stepping back in time to begin things here to roughly 25 years before current events. And here we find a certain legendary figure by the name of Golden Lion Shiki at the helm of one of the more terrifying armadas to have ever been formed. And it also happens to be one of the most satisfying to say Japanese names, being the Kinjishi Kaizokudan. But Shiki was quite the fan of overwhelming military might, and at the height of his career, he commanded a 51 division fleet, which by today's standards would be of a scale and competition worthy of an emperor. But in addition to this, Shiki himself was also not to be underestimated, and his most famous battle in the series would see him face off against both Garp and Sengoku in an event that would end up destroying half of Marineford. Like really, Canon Shiki is no joke. How he was portrayed in the Strong World film does not do he or his crew any justice, although sadly when it comes to the crew, the Golden Lion Pirates fell victim to the ultimate power of fate, when Shiki decided to engage in combat with the infamous Goldie Roger in another event known as the Battle of Ed War. And in this situation, weirdly enough, the Golden Lion Pirates were almost guaranteed victory. That is, until a brutal storm struck and immediately sank half of Shiki's fleet, thus allowing the Roger Pirates to escape and signaling the beginning of the end for the Golden Lion Pirates, as they were never able to fully recover their former power. Although interestingly enough, within canon, the Golden Lion Pirates are still assumedly out there in the world somewhere, but whatever state they're in, it's nothing compared to their former glory. Now speaking of glory, may I introduce you all to number 9, the Giant Warrior Pirates, an intergenerational crew that terrorized the seas hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but despite that, many of their members are still alive and well to this very day. Originally, this band of massive fiends was co-captained by Jorel and Jarl, before they eventually handed command of the crew over to the more familiar Dory and Broggy. And now I really need to emphasize just how ridiculously powerful this force would have been, because from our perspective, giants in One Piece, well, they've gotten a bit of a bad rap. They're often seen alone and overcome quite simply, but a small army of them would be an extraordinary task to deal with. So much so that the world government was never actually able to. The Giant Warrior Pirates were eventually dissolved due to an ongoing dispute between Captains Dory and Broggy, which 100 years later is still in the process of being settled, and the rest of the fractured crew eventually dissipated and went on to do their own things. However, with that said, the Giant Warrior Pirates are certainly still one of the most powerful pirate crews to have ever existed. But next up, we have a crew that you may or may not have heard of, being the Straw Hat Pirates, a very recent addition to this list and very well earned as well. Individually, it really is hard to compare any other crew to the Straw Hats, because every member is quite ridiculous in their own right. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are quickly becoming one of the most fearsome trios to have ever existed. The crew has a former warlord of the sea aboard, a woman who can literally control the weather, a futuristic cyborg capable of building super weapons, an undead skeleton with soul-related abilities, an archaeologist with the not-to-be-overlooked power of supreme knowledge, allowing the crew to find various things like, say, ancient weapons, a doctor who can heal just about anything, and of course, most importantly of all, a man with a long nose. It's very long. But even with all of that in mind, what lands the Straw Hats here today are their extended forces. Things like the Straw Hat Grand Fleet or their natural allies such as the Ninja Pirate Mink Samurai Alliance, as well as the various kingdoms that have unofficially sworn allegiances, like say Alabasta or Dressrosa. So it really isn't so much the Straw Hats themselves that encapsulate power, so much as the influence they hold and the allies they could call upon at any given moment. And when that does happen, they may very well become the most powerful crew in the series, but for now, we're gonna stick with number 8. Moving to number 7 now though, we have another comparatively modern addition to history, being the Blackbeard Pirates. Now, as a force led by someone widely recognized as an Emperor of the Sea, it was always going to be pretty hard to deny the Blackbeard Pirates a spot on this here list. I mean, their captain Marshall D. Cheech is now globally infamous, if only for the idea that he has very much managed to do the impossible and hold the powers of 2 devil fruits simultaneously. And not only that, but 2 of the most terrifying abilities as well, being the Gorogoro no Mi and the Yami Yami no Mi. But Mr. Blackbeard has also put great resources into expanding the Blackbeard Pirates into a military force, forming a 10-division crew led by his Titanic captains, an endeavor that has proved successful enough to consolidate power within the New World amongst a slew of profound competition. And in addition to this, the Blackbeard Pirates also have this curious association with the former Marine Admiral being Kuzan, which is a pretty wild thought, but even without Kuzan's presence, this is a pretty petrifyingly powerful crew. And as for number 6, we have the Red Hair Pirates, and I do want to quickly state that, look, I don't actually know where this crew should be ranked. Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates are very problematic figures because we do not know the full measure of them or even a vague makeup of their larger forces. But what we do know is that the Red Hair Pirates were threatening enough to show up at Marineford and have both Blackbeard and Sengoku immediately agree to end a war out of fear of facing them. So they are 100% quite serious business. And we do also note the Red Hair Pirates are a group capable of skirmishing equally with other emperors because they did become briefly embroiled with the Beast Pirates prior to Marineford. But even with all of that, it's impossible to accurately rank them with the mere information we have. And Shanks fanboys might whine a bit at that, But remember, this list is not about individuals. It's about collective crew strength, and right now we are very, very awkwardly placed with the Red Hair Pirates. They are simply too threatening to ignore, which is why they're here, but I could very much see this placement changing in the future when we do finally learn a bit more about them. But for now, let's break into the top 5, beginning with the Roger Pirates. And I think that many people may have expected this group to land at number 1, considering that it does contain the Gold D. Roger, the infamous Pirate King and the man who held power demonstrably equitable to Whitebeard. Add in the legendary Dark King Silvers Rayleigh on top of that, and hey, at a certain point you could even throw in Kozuki Odin, which is a trio I don't think anybody anywhere wants to face off against. But in the end, what holds the Roger Pirates back is the fact that while they had a small concentration of some of the strongest figures in the world, as a crew they were kind of outmatched in terms of just raw, wide-ranging power. I mean, for example, our number 10 contender, the Golden Lion Pirates, possess the military might to annihilate the Roger Pirates, and really so does probably every modern-day Emperor of the Sea. Although if I'd put the Roger Pirates below everyone, then I suspect a lot of dicks would have been ripped. But the Roger Pirates were not a group that could have fought a war on their own like many other crews. They were an opportunistic band of individually powerful fighters, not too unlike the Straw Hats really, and they were able to use that small size to their advantage. However, by virtue of having Roger, Rayleigh, Odin, and so many others, I simply cannot deny them a number 5 place. And so let's move on to one of Roger's key rivals in the Whitebeard Pirates, sitting pretty at number 4. And this is the first group on this list that we really do know the full scope of, apart from the Straw Hats, I guess. And in this case, we know that the Whitebeard Pirates are enough to take on the entirety of the Marines, which I will remind you, there were about 100,000 soldiers present at Marineford, and the Whitebeard Pirates took on that full force of the world government, including what remained of the 7 warlords, which is particularly wonderfully impressive because the core crew of the Whitebeard Pirates consists of just over 1,600 members. And in addition to this, the Whitebeard Pirates had 43 other allied crews alongside them, but the difference in pure numbers was still staggeringly unfavorable for them. And the X factor to make that up was obviously Whitebeard himself, who was labeled as the strongest man in the world, but his 16 division commanders were also supremely powerful, as were each of their legions. The Whitebeard Pirates were an organized, cohesive group that had the potential to change the structure of the very planet with the Paramount War. Pretty amazing stuff for a single crew, which is going to be quite a common theme from here on out. So getting a bit larger now, we have number 3, the Big Mom Pirates, and this group operates on a scale that we have not yet explored on this list. It's the first crew that I would truly describe as its own empire, which of course is led by something of a royal dynasty. At the helm of everything is Charlotte Linlin, aka Big Mom, who apparently has the amusing title of being the strongest hag in the world. And she is almost certainly at least the second most powerful individual currently alive on the planet, but the Big Mom Pirates' true terror comes from its expansive armed forces, which are led by at least 74 out of 85 of Big Mom's children. And from there we have all sorts of allies, soldiers, and even soul-based creatures dedicated to fighting for the Big Mom Pirates that number in the tens of thousands. The scale and overall power of the Big Mom Pirates is absurd, and really, in terms of other crews, only one actually compares to them, which would be our number 2 place, being the Beast Pirates. This is the largest specified organization of pirates that One Piece has ever showcased, with a core crew of roughly 20,000 members and a further 10,000 loyalist samurai and ninja from the land of Wano, and even at their lowest levels, these guys are no joke. Well, except for Batman, because he's pretty funny. Although even then, in the anime, he completely thrashed Luffy. So look, even low-level filler action from the Beast Pirates is something to be taken seriously. But this crew hierarchy is like nothing we've ever seen before, and I think it does say quite a bit that sitting right at the top are characters who possess 3 of the top 10 highest recorded bounties in the series thus far, being Jack, Queen, and Kaido. Although to be fair, King is almost certainly going to be up there as well. And speaking of Kaido, he is a man who has now been referred to not only as the strongest creature in the world, but also just the strongest pirate, period. Now, whether that means the strongest pirate alive is a different discussion, but in the modern day, it is clear-cut. Kaido is the pinnacle of raw power, and that is reflected all the way down through the Beast Pirates, who are undoubtedly the most incredibly dominant crew of modern-day One Piece. However, the vast histories contain at least one crew who eclipses all of that, and perhaps everything there ever will be. But just before we unveil the number 1 spot, this is a spoiler warning for anime-only watchers or those who are not yet up to date with Act 3 of Wano. This is a big spoiler. But when we're talking about the most powerful pirate crews, there is no possibility of ignoring this. So there's your warning, and for everyone else, we will reveal the number 1 position in 3, 2, 1, and it is of course the Rocks Pirates. An idea which may initially seem counterproductive to how I've been analyzing power thus far in terms of military might, because at first glance the Rocks Pirates are more akin to a group like the Roger or the Straw Hat Pirates, this comparatively small collective, but the key difference is that the Rocks Pirates are the first and only all-star crew of One Piece. This crew contained 4 captains of crews that have previously been listed here, including Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, and Shiki, 4 of the most influential pirates in history, to name but a few. But the Rocks had many other world-renowned names that spawned because this was a crew of captains. It would be kind of like the equivalent of all of the supernovas meeting up on Sabadi Archipelago and then just deciding to form a new crew with all 11 of them. That combination of power and resources would be world-shaking, and as for the Rocks, they were led by an even more infamous figure named Rox D. Zebek, a man who is credited as being the most formidable foe of Gol D. Roger, as well as someone who with his crew was on the verge of destroying the world government institution. And at this point, numbers really do become meaningless. The Rocks pirates were a supercrew, a concept that will likely never be seen again in the series, and thus they make up by far the most powerful pirate crew in One Piece. But what do you guys think? Please do leave your thoughts in the comments below, or even join my Discord server. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, then please do go and check out some of my other content, or even subscribe to the channel for more glorious One Piece business uploaded straight into your YouTube feed. But for now, this has been the Grand Line Review, and I'll see you next time.